welcome to Butterflies of Wisdom, everyone. I know you're going to be sick and tired of hearing me on Monday when this podcast comes out. To those of you who are driving home from Memorial Day festivities, happy Memorial Day. And today I have Mr. Patrick Thomas with me. Mr. Patrick Thomas is a podcaster, and I know I should do my homework and listen to Patrick's podcast, but I haven't yet. So without further ado, I'm going to let
Hello?
I'm still here.
Oh, yeah.
Still, and
I'm very happy to be here. Hello? I'm very happy to be on your podcast. I listened to a couple episodes of your podcast, even though you haven't listened to mine. That's okay. But my podcast is called Stay the Course, and I do comedy in Houston. But it's also an inspirational type podcast. I like to talk to people about like their life experiences and the things that they've been through. But I try to lighten it up and use a little humor here and there, and my crazy sense of comedy. But yeah, I like podcasts. I like listening to yours, and that's what I'm here to do.
Well, I'm happy to have you on. Now, question for you: why did you start your podcast?
The reason why I started my podcast is that I do stand-up comedy. It's something I started a couple of years ago. And it's basically like I don't know if it's like my calling. It's just something that pulls me to do it. It's my artistic expression. But what I found out is that it takes a really long time to get good at it. And so basically, like, you would wait around all day and wait around all night at an open mic for hours just to go up for 5 minutes. And it was an inefficient way to express myself and express, my passions and my creativity. So with the podcast, it allowed me to work on something, that's unique to myself, and then give it to a broader audience. So it's just my way of expressing myself, but in a more efficient way. And I've always just loved podcasts. I'm probably like a podcast addict. I listen to hundreds of podcasts. So I just really like podcasts, and so that's why I started my own.
Oh, you are like the rest of us. You listen to podcasts, think, oh, that's fun, I'll start my own, and then realize maybe not so much because it's a lot of work.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I figured that out. Like with doing a podcast, the most important thing is consistency, right? Like I've seen how you put out many, many episodes, and that's the most important thing, And like the name of my podcast is called Stay the Course. So basically, it's like my philosophy is that if there's something out there that you want to do, you should just start doing it and figure it out as you go. So like when I did my very first episode, I didn't even know what my podcast was or where it was heading. I just wanted to have a podcast, so I just started, and I figured out I've had about 25 episodes now that it does take a lot of work, but it's something that I really love to do, and I've had people reach out to me. I've got real deep on some topics, and people have reached out to me and said the things that I've said, really hit home with them. And so when people tell me that, it makes me feel really good because it's like my way of giving back to other people.
I understand that. I definitely understand that. Now, what has been your favorite podcast interview you have done, and what has been your favorite podcast you have listened to?
My favorite podcast that I've done. Well, I've had several different people on my show. I do podcasts by myself as well as guests. I like doing the solo podcast, but I just did one with a guy named Joshua Stokes. He was on my show, and it was so fun because I try to take people into deep waters and talk about deep stuff. But it was just free form. We just talked about like food and like the different foods. Like he likes this because he's from St. Louis, and I like this because I like gyros and beef sandwiches because I'm from Chicago. And we were just relaxed and having a great time. And I really enjoyed talking about him with that because it was just so relaxed and so easy. Some people are easier to talk to on podcasts than others. So whenever I get somebody who can just go free flow like that, I really enjoy it. And then what was the other question? What is my favorite podcast to listen to?
Podcast you have listened to.
I listen to so many. If I could give one recommendation out there, a podcast that I love that not a lot of people listen to, it's called The Smartest Man in the World with Greg Proops. Greg Proops he does the improv. He was on that Whose Line Is It Anyway show. He's the guy who wears a suit and has glasses, but his podcast is hilarious. It's a solo podcast. He does it in front of an audience. And he gets deep and he talks about like some political stuff. He's very much like on the liberal side of things, which I like to hear his thoughts. But he's so funny with it that it's very enjoyable. I think more people should tune into that show because I think it's pretty good.
So give us the name again.
It's called The Smartest Man in the World.
The Smartest Man in the World. Well, good.
Yeah, that's the name of the show. His name is Greg Proops, Proops.
Yeah, I would have to tune into that myself and see what I think of it. Now, what has been your greatest entrepreneurial moment?
My greatest entrepreneurial moment?
Yeah.
I don't really consider myself so much an entrepreneur because I also work as a tugboat mate. I'm a mate on a tugboat. I drive a boat.
Jeez. My goodness.
Oh yeah, it's a crazy job. I basically live there for 4 days, and then I'm off for 4 days, and it's a skill that I developed, driving the boat. But for me, like starting stand-up comedy and starting my podcast and just expressing my way through that is more of my, I guess, entrepreneurial moment, And like when you say entrepreneur, I think that can represent a lot of things. I think sometimes people always get caught up in the idea that like you have to like you can't. The goals are always like monetary, right? And so like entrepreneurs a lot of times will say that like I have to like start my own business and make my income through my passion. But I think there's a miscalculation there. I think that people can, your source of income doesn't necessarily have to be like your passion. It can just be like the way like you support your dreams in other ways. So while I work as a tugboat operator, that's my source of income, but I pursue my passion in other ways through comedy and through podcasts and writing and things like that.
I agree. Or you can just go full force into your passion and make money off your passion.
Yeah, you can. And then I can also a lot of people like to say that like you have to do that to really be. But see, I just don't agree with the fact that like my passion has to be my income. My income is like the way I just support myself. So I don't know. Some people say that like if you're gonna do it, you need to go all the way. You need to go full force. But like I don't. For me personally, I don't think there's anything wrong with pursuing my interests, outside of my income.
Well, I definitely agree with you. I definitely agree on that one.
Yeah, I think a lot of times people get lost in that, and so they have their job and they're not happy like with their job, and like there's this this idea out there that like you need to embrace who you are and go towards that. But I think it's okay for people to accept their profession, even though they may not love it. Like my job, I don't love it, but I can tolerate it. I think more people need to have a mindset of like it's okay to like do something you don't like, but as long as you're pursuing your interests in your off time. I think most people probably don't do that.
And now, why don't you like being a tugboat captain and of all things? Why do you not like that? Do you think that because it's hard work, or is it a different reason, if you don't mind me asking?
Like I said, I can tolerate being a tugboat operator, but I mean, it's a hard job. I mean, it's not easy. It's not for everybody. I basically live on a boat, which is like a tank. I basically live there for 4 days, so half of my life is spent, being on a boat with 3 other people who aren't necessarily my friends or my coworkers. So it's just it's difficult. We don't get a lot of sleep. It's hard to function, so but I can put up with it. I could never, I used to be a salesman. I used to do marketing and sales, and I absolutely hated it. The idea of going to like sales meetings and answering emails and calling and people back. I can't do that anymore. It doesn't vibe with me.
It doesn't vibe. Well, what has been your favorite book you have read? It doesn't have to be a business book. It doesn't have to be a comedy book per se. It has to be a book that you go back to time and time again.
Well, there's a couple different books, and books are definitely something I would read a lot. There's one I would recommend for people called The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield, and basically it is it's a short book, so you can read it like in a day, and it basically is talking about like why people don't pursue their passions, and a lot of it is that their artistic creative abilities is that there's a lot of excuses in their life, and so he likens it to what he calls resistance. So resistance, like what he says, is like that thing that's constantly telling you to not work, to not do what you want to do. It's like giving yourself the excuse, like I need to sit down and do some writing, or I need to sit down and do some creative thing, but before I do that, I have to work out, or I have to take a nap, or I have to eat dinner. And he says, like, you need to recognize that, like, that's holding you back. And it's kind of like with our artistic expressions, or like they call it like the muse, like the thing that like comes to you and gives you those creative ideas. You need to sit down every day and embrace it, and kind of wait for the muse. That's like when the muse kicks in, but you have to sit down and do it each day. So, to me, that's a tremendous book. I think everybody should read it.
And where can people find you, and where can people find your podcast? Obviously, your podcast is in iTunes, but where else can people find you?
Yeah, if people, that's the main thing. If people would like to listen to my podcast, that would be great. It's called Stay the Course with Pat Thomas, and you can get it on iTunes. I also have a website, which is basically nothing more than my podcast. That is bigpat.net. And then I'm on Twitter and Instagram. That's at Big Pat Thomas. If you haven't guessed, I'm a big person. I'm a large human being. And then they can also get me on Snapchat at Yo Big Pat, YO Big Pat. So that's where they can follow me.
And if you had to be educated by anyone, who would it be and why?
If I had to be educated by anyone?
Educated by anyone. Who would it be and why?
I don't know, like in the comedy community, there's definitely like comedians out there that you want to learn from and understand how they got to where, they are, and like being so good at expressing themselves. Like there's one comedian that I really love, Doug Stanhope. He's gone so deep into the comedy that it's almost like philosophy when he talks. It's almost like he's preaching, So like guys like him, I really look up to, and I want to get more closer to that. But he also says one thing, because like in the comedy community, people are always asking each other for advice and giving advice, even when you don't want advice. But I heard him one time, the thing he said that I've always thought about is, I saw him give advice, and he said, don't take advice from other people because they're only trying to make you more like them, So it's like, if somebody's telling you how to be creative, it's like that's the way they see creativity. Where he is like he more embraces the idea of you got to figure it out on your own. So I guess it would be cool to sit and talk with a guy like that and learn a few words of wisdom from him.
Yeah, and I believe that there's so many great individuals in the stand-up community, in the stand-up comic community, that there's so many great individuals to get educated by within your niche or within your passion.
Yeah, so the thing with people who do stand-up, and I'm not trying to point a broad base, but when you do comedy, a lot of what comes out as funny is admitting your faults, and so I think a lot of times why comedians are attractive to listen to is that the comedians will allow themselves to be very vulnerable. So we'll tell you everything that's wrong with us, everything that's messed up with us, and through that vulnerability and through that honesty is where you get the comedy. And so those people, tend to be, I think, very more interesting because they're just so honest with themselves. So that's, I think, why people like hearing their ideas.
So what you're saying, Pat, is that comics are honest with themselves to make people laugh.
Yeah, I think because I think a lot of times the comedy is one of the ways the comedy works is through self-deprecation, right? When a guy goes up there and he talks about my wife left me and I screwed up here and I look this way, I don't look normal. When people see that, then people can relate to that as an audience member. You see a guy kind of he's making fun of himself, so then everybody kind of gets on board. I think that's the way comedy works. Of course, I'm not an expert, but more times you see comedy come from there than you do from somebody kind of punching down. Nobody wants to see a guy just go up there and brag about all the things he does and how awesome he is. They want to see the guy, telling the world of all his thoughts and all the things that are wrong with him. But then I think it makes people feel better.
So you think people making fun of themselves make other people feel better?
I think in general that's just kind of a comedy philosophy is that if somebody goes up on stage and talks about everything that's wrong with them, they go up and they say this doesn't work with me, then I think an audience member looks at that and the audience member can relate to that. They see somebody admitting their faults, and then I think you develop more of a connection with people that way. I think people get connected more to honesty and authenticity. That's what I try to do on my podcast, is be honest and admit that things are wrong with me. Then I think when people see that, they get more of a connection rather than just the guy who brags about everything he has, because that's kind of being fake, right? Somebody who just look at all I have, look at all I've done. That's just it's not real. So I don't think people can connect with that. They don't want to as much, in my opinion.
Well, I see what you're saying, and I completely agree. And so before I let you go, Pat, I'm going to let you turn the mic on me and ask me 2 to 4 questions that you've been interested in asking me.
Yeah, I've thought about this because I have listened to some of your podcasts, and one thing that I always think about is a person with a disability. So you have cerebral palsy. I have people that I know that have children like that. I'm always concerned about the way the parents get through that, because that's certainly something that not everybody has signed up for. What would you tell a parent who has a young child with a disability? What advice would you give them, the parent of the child?
Always, always, always look outside the box for physical therapy, emotional therapy, occupational therapy. Always, always, always look outside the box, because you may be able to find something that fits your child's needs better than traditional therapy. So always, always, always be researching, always be listening to my podcast. I mean, I try and stay on the beat of what's going on in the robotics world, and I try and bring it to you guys the best I can. But always look outside the box, and always never give up hope on your child. I mean, they told a lot of parents in the 80s and in the 70s to stick their kids in homes. In 87, when I was born, they told my parents to stick me in a home. This child will never walk. This child will never talk. So always never give up on your child, and always look for alternatives in the ways your child needs and what you feel best is for your child.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's some good advice there. And my heart always, goes out to people when I see, parents dealing with the children like that. I mean, as a friend to a person, like, I guess, what can someone like me do, say, if I had a friend who's a parent, like, other than just, I don't even know what to tell them sometimes, because, like, I know a friend who goes through that, and I don't even know what to say, but.
Well, the best thing you can do, and the best thing all my listeners can do when they run into that situation, because, yes, they're going to run into that situation, is say nothing and just listen and let the parent open up.
Yeah.
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 Say
I guess that's right.
Let the parent open up, or let the child open up if the child's old enough too.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I guess that would be good. That would be good advice, just in life in general. It's just, I think a lot of people sometimes they don't allow themselves to listen and understand where other people are coming from. So that's good advice.
So again, you guys, this has been a fabulous episode with Pat. His podcast is called Stay the Course. It can be found in iTunes, and it sounds like a wonderful podcast. I will listen to it. I will report back to you guys next week, and I hope you guys have a wonderful Memorial Day and a wonderful Memorial Day weekend, and let's kick some off, right? And Pat, I hope it's not too hot in Houston for you.
Well, it's starting to get there. We're a couple weeks away from the hot, humid.
Yeah.
I'm embracing these last couple days of being able to go outside.
Yep, because it gets 100 and over 100 degrees down there. You guys, those who live in Houston, be very, very careful. Don't get heat stroke on me. Don't get stay hydrated, and that's my public announcement for Memorial Day. And just be careful of those fireworks, or anytime you do fireworks, just be careful and have fun. And Pat, I enjoyed this conversation tremendously, and I will listen to your podcast. And this podcast has been sponsored by Kitter, Kitter, and what they do is you compose the tweet, or they can compose a tweet, and then they put the trending hashtag with it, so you guys don't get lost in the heap. And I hope you guys enjoyed another fabulous episode. Thanks to you guys. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.